Good morning, mums and dads. Welcome to our first collaborative show. It's going to be a mini series. My name is Dedi Zibuse Gunene, and with me is the awesome, the fantastic, the energetic, the ever innovative Mami.
Karabo. As we say, thank you so much. I'm really excited to be here to kickstart a wonderful series talking about a really wonderful topic. I really love talking about parenting. I think it's one of the most awesomest and most challenging jobs in the world, but we love it. So really glad to be here.
Yeah, one that does not come with a manual, sadly.
And one that needs a manual mostly. We could use a manual in these streets.
Yeah. So the first of our 4 topics on this limited series is an exciting one, but I'm sure a nerve-wracking one for most who have never been. And for those who have been, you'll realize that with each child, it's almost like a totally different new experience because each child comes with their own kind of like mindset and will and everything changes. So today's topic is becoming mom and dad, and it's part of the parenthood journey series. So it's usually a challenge when you're a father or when you're a dad, and you're expecting, right? It's especially when it's your first time and you are not prepared. It's even the hardest there. You tend to be surprised with the news of, oops, hey, we're pregnant. And then in your mind, you're kind of thinking, what's actually the correct response? You're thinking of the appropriate response rather than what's really going through your mind and your heart. You're like getting into this thing and you are new. You've never been a parent before. So how do you respond? Yay. And then you try to be convincing, but it usually doesn't go as well as other dads would love to. But for those who have been planning and wanting to be on that journey, I've heard some dads go like, okay, no, it's what I've been expecting, or it's what I've been telling you, when they usually tell their partners that, I've been expecting it and I've been seeing the signs. And it then becomes a different topic. I remember with my daughter, the first time, it's like I had wanted a child. And so when the news came, it was like, oh, okay, yes, it's done. Now the next step, facing up to the pregnancy then that was coming. And I don't know if the experience is the same for mothers or mothers to be.
I don't know if you guys go through a similar overthinking process just when we get the news. So the news is different, right? So I would like to know how many of us actually kind of prepare and actually plan babies in comparison to the number of people that it just happens by surprise. I was definitely surprised. The last thing on my plans in that moment was a child. I think we were in the middle of like planning our wedding when we found out that we were having a baby. And it had like it shakes you. It really does shake you, because I immediately go into overthinking mode, because I'm not a huge planner, but in that moment, at that stage of my life, there was a plan. And then what this felt like was a complete diversion of what the plan was. So it was so funny. I was generally not feeling well, but I wasn't really suspecting that. And I went to the doctor and we found out, and it shocked me so much that I went outside and I sat on the side of the pavement, like I was literally sitting down on the side of the pavement on the phone with my friend, and yeah, it shocks you. It rocks your world. I think that's the big moment. That's the big moment where life really changes for us, because then you start really considering the future. Like before children come, we think about it, but I don't think as overactively as we think about it when we find out we are expecting. Um, yeah, but it's also beautiful because the reaction that you get as well um, kind of informs our level of overthinking, particularly the reaction you get from the father.
Yeah.
So when I told my husband that we were expecting, like he froze in proper surprise. But then I was also so I think I was also so mean, because then I just said it to him and then I just left. Like,
Ouch.
just deal with it on your own. We'll meet together at some point and then we'll discuss this. But right now, I want us to kind of process it separately. But I remember that night he didn't even sleep the whole night because he was really thinking about it. But his reaction wasn't a bad freeze. It was actually like was a surprise. It was a surprise. I wasn't really expecting anything else. But when you get a reaction from a father that seems like he's not interested, because I think you can get a reaction like that. That one that just kind of immediately shuts down. Obviously, depending on the nature of the relationship between me and the partner. But the reaction that is like it's not interested can really dictate how you then feel about the pregnancy. But the reaction that I personally got warmed me up to the idea of motherhood.
Wow, that's beautiful. I remember. So with me is it was my daughter, and then in 2013 I became part of Dads in the Picture. Now the thing is, you never know what you don't know until you start being exposed. And the influence that I received around there was quite subtle. That it's not like you know when you study something and then you get to take a test and then the results come back and then you realize, hey, I actually know this, you know. Or as you are learning, you realize I'm getting to know this. So it wasn't like that for me, such that when my son then came, it was a totally different ball game. I was not expecting it. We had just gotten married with my wife. And then I was in a meeting. We were planning a tour as part of Dads in the Picture. And at that meeting, she sends me a picture, a WhatsApp with the 2 lines. Oh, no, it wasn't 2 lines. It was the digital test. And then it said, and then it said 2 to 3 weeks. Like I was thrown off from that meeting. So I had to come back and kind of refocus. But my excitement then was too much because I then eventually shared with the guys that I just got news that we're pregnant. And even the language then changed, because initially it would have been my wife is pregnant, which most guys often say, my wife is pregnant. But when you've come to the unity that this thing is you together, you then change your language. We are pregnant. And even though some people may not understand the we, it's still a we, because as a man, when you are involved in the process, things get to change within you. I read somewhere that your hormones, how you like things change even within a man. It's just that it's not things that would be visible to everyone. And then there's the thing that I love, and most dads don't realize it, or dads to be, it's called compassionate pregnancy. That is the fun part. With my firstborn, it was I consumed a lot of dairy products, so your ice creams, milk, yogurt, all of those things. I remember I used to buy a 2 liter of milk, and I would finish it. I don't know in how long, probably in a day or two. Like just me.
Is this before or after you guys found out you were expecting?
Not just after.
Okay. So for those who don't know, compassionate pregnancy is when the father also experiences some sort of pregnancy symptoms, which actually happens a lot. Even gaining pregnancy weight.
No, that is the best. So you find guys getting like imikaba where they head, and the guy is busy frustrating himself, trying to lose weight, but he can't. And then he also comes back and he thinks, okay, maybe I need to do more exercise, but the exercise doesn't work. And then he starts eating a lot, and that doesn't work. But the fun one for me, and it also takes me back to a time where I was working at this coffee shop, and one of my colleagues, his girlfriend was pregnant, and they knew that they were pregnant, and he came to work this one time just as the shift started. He started getting messed up. He didn't know what was going on. He was feeling very somehow, and just like that, went to the back and he vomited. So the morning sickness had come to him, and it was just, well, it wasn't really funny, but it was one of those funniest things to observe, that he was there in that phase. And I remember telling my wife that with our next baby, I wouldn't mind getting the compassionate pregnancy or the morning sickness. And she kept saying, you better take the eating. I don't mind taking the vomiting, but I'd rather take the vomiting than the eating.
Really?
Yeah, no. Because the morning sicknesses, they come and then they're done for some time. But the eating, it's consistent, and then you struggle to get the weight
very
off.
consistent. I think the compassionate pregnancy, you're right, like it really speaks a lot to the nature of the relationship between mom and dad. That's really what dictates that. Because I think the problem also is that society still views pregnancy and childbirth and child rearing as a predominantly female orientated role. I think that's why for some guys it's just, it's still, my wife is pregnant. Just viewing it as my responsibility. And you're right, like and that dictates so much, like the union and the relationship dictates so much, because then to what extent the father chooses to be involved during the pregnancy also dictates how they are involved after the pregnancy.
Yes.
Because then that's where we really need you to get involved. After giving birth, that's where we really need the support. And usually we learn that, caregiving is my job, and I'm the one that has the mom instinct, and that's why I can get involved. So I think that's the type of stuff that I think is really important for couples to also have conversations about after they found out that they're pregnant. I think the expectation conversation is very important, even during the pregnancy, because the reality is that I'm carrying the child, so I'm experiencing the pregnancy in a very different light to you. Like as much as maybe you might be experiencing the compassionate pregnancy, I'm still carrying the life. So my experience and experience are going to be very, very different. So then my expectations versus your expectations are also very different. So that's why that's why the communication is constantly important throughout the journey, even during pregnancy, to have conversations about what is it that I need from you. Even guys asking, how can I be involved? Because then it can feel like an isolating experience where she's like, she's pregnant, she's carrying the child, but you can actually be an active part of the pregnancy as well, as much as you're not experiencing it, but just trying to service the needs of your partner at that point. But you won't know what they are until you ask.
Yeah, that's
so
true.
the talking is really important.
I think that the other thing, going back, let's say to the news and processing the news of the pregnancy, it's usually a challenge, especially when it's something when you did not expect it. I think it also goes a long way how you respond when you first get the news, because there are some women who, let's say she finds out this week and then contemplates on how to break the news to the dad. And she's been now ruminating on this for some time. And then when she breaks the news, she's probably gone through the process of accepting and dealing with all the emotions and the excitement or whatever else that comes with it. But I think one of the things as well is trying to anticipate his reaction. And when she's excited, she may expect him to be excited. And then he gets the news, it's not part of the plan, as you were alluding to earlier. When it's not part of the plan, what do you do? How do you respond? Because it's like the most famous one is, whose baby is it? You know? And then you realize you've just put your foot in your mouth. Oops. No, but that's not what I mean. When you're shocked, it's a different response to her that she did not anticipate. So you kind of have to at times fake the excitement. But once that comes, it's like, but I don't know how to be a father. Or I've messed up being a father previously. How am I going to get this one right? And then there are those feelings of anxiety. There's thinking about the finances. Can I really afford a baby? Things are expensive, this and that. So as a man, you go through so much in your mind trying to figure out, can I really afford this baby financially? And I think it takes us some time to get to the emotional part. Where am I mentally and emotionally ready? Do I have the capacity to father a child right now? Maybe he still wants to grow career wise, or the business still needs to grow, but this came unexpected. So he has to deal with all of those things. And I don't know if with you mothers to be or moms to be, if you go through the same, or whether it's more or it's less. I don't know. How is it with you?
So I had previously said that there's generally an overthinking that definitely happens on our part as well. So the financial consideration is also one that we think about, but I don't think it happens at the extent that it happens for fathers, because where the complexity then surfaces for you as fathers is that your entire existence within that role is measured against how much you earn, right? Like provision is the definition of fatherhood. So you definitely measure yourself against that. So I don't think it can ever happen that we think about the financial consideration as much as you do, because a lot of fathers, particularly Black fathers, define fatherhood as financial provision. So you feel like if you're not earning enough, or you haven't worked long enough, or you're not yet in that position that can make you earn enough, then you feel like you're not ready for fatherhood. I think that's a very consideration that really differentiates in terms of the financial consideration. I mean, the second time we were expecting, I did think about money way more than I did the first time. Because the first time I knew I was going to become a mother, was questions around, am I ready for this? But how that looked like for me is that, do I really have capacity for another human being right now? Am I an adult enough? Because I was 26 when I fell pregnant the first time. And, still young and out here living life, and, just recently got engaged. So looking forward to holidays with my husband and all of that stuff. So my thinking was still like a very young person. So usually youth is kind of synonymous with like irresponsibility. So I'd always myself, I'm like, no, I'm not responsible enough to have a child. Like, I'm even gonna forget Urwe here next to me. Next thing, I'm sleeping on top of her. I used to say stuff like that because I really didn't feel like I am emotionally ready to have a child. So a lot of our considerations are emotionally inclined. I was thinking around what my point of reference for parenting is, because then I start thinking about how much I'm going to struggle because my mom is not here for me. Where am I going to learn? Stuff like that. That's what I was thinking about in terms of my readiness as a mother. Then, and when I felt pregnant again, then now I'm like, I did this once, so now it's like I'm capable of doing it. The doubts that I had the first time, I didn't have now. Now it's a different ball game. But now what I'm considering is still plus I'm the mom that talks about conscious parenting. Now I'm thinking about the emotional well-being of the first one when this new one comes. How is she going to experience having a sibling and stuff like that? That's what I'm thinking about right now. As well. So it's more emotional stuff for us. Someone asked about maternal instinct. Who was it? Is it mom instinct or the subconscious and expected behavior that socialization has planted? I think in terms of our roles being viewed as her job versus his job, it's definitely a socialization. Society has always told us what men and women should be doing, right? But when it comes to maternal instinct, like I said, we don't experience pregnancy the same. I am literally physically connected to this child, right? You did a big job. We appreciate your sperm very, very much. It did wonderful. But I actually have a very, very big job that I'm doing during these 9 months. I am attached to this human life, right? So my relationship with her needs is going to be very different to your relationship with her needs. That's what the maternal instinct is for me, is that I know what my daughter needs without her having to vocalize it. Because we have that connection. We had a physical connection for like 9 months, and that connection is not cut out by cutting the umbilical cord, and we're going to have that for a lifetime. But then the socialization that you can't respond to her needs just as much as I can is very socialized. I think that's why I have a big problem with the traditional ways of navigating a new life, where I'm being taken to go stay with my mother or my mother-in-law for 3 months because I have to be, I have to learn motherhood and all of that. Yes, I need to learn motherhood, and the adults in my family can do that, but don't separate the child from the father. You see, that's what society and tradition are doing. They're socializing us, because then what you're missing out is the first few days of this human life, where you actually get to learn what my child needs, how can I respond to those needs. So once you experience that type of disconnection in those first few days of life, then you're constantly going to feel disconnected from them. So you're going to feel like you don't know what they need when they need it. But me, I'm literally always there. That mom instinct is definitely a thing. But the disconnection sometimes between a father and a child is definitely socialized in us. Even traditionally, that disconnection happens,
Sure.
which I have serious arguments about.
You've just
But we'll
taken.
talk about that. We'll talk about that in a different different part of the series, the after the baby series.
Yeah, because I almost went to touch on it, but I just want to get us back, because seriously, once we get to the socialization part, and especially from the time that you're pregnant and then throughout the journey until the child is born, it's a totally different topic. But I'm not going to get there. So now, just to bring us back, in this journey, it's us now becoming new parents. I think the storm, if I may call it that, is the first trimester. Hormonal changes are happening to the mother quicker than they're happening to the dad. The dad is not necessarily realizing the hormonal changes that are happening within him. And again, the separation issue comes there. If he distances and pulls away in that first trimester, then it's gone. But if he comes closer from that moment when he starts accepting that the pregnancy is there and it's not going away, then things change as well. Becoming more active, realizing the things that he needs to do, the constant foot massages, back massages, and but then also most couples tend to go through challenges during their pregnancy, or the man gets to a cheat during pregnancy, and it's probably discovered long after that, or it's discovered during the pregnancy. But the one thing that's important, especially for us dads or dads to be, is once you learn that there's you are now pregnant, the one thing is there are two ways that intimacy will go, especially in the first trimester. Either you'll be more intimate than usual or much less. And then there needs to be a coping mechanism for that. And most women don't respond the same. And sometimes I tend to think that it has to do with the gender of the baby. I don't know, it's not proven, it's not scientific. It feels to me that when it's a boy child, sometimes the intimacy is much less. When it's a girl child, the intimacy is more. I don't know. It's not a fact, but it's just what I've observed. And that's what tends to happen then. And dads tend to find it rather a challenge. They always want it, and the mother is just not there. She's going through these changes. How do we meet each other halfway, especially when the distance is not sanctioned for when the lack of intimacy is not sanctioned for medical reasons? How do you then kind of find a common ground? And even beyond this, I think things start to come down in the second trimester, where now you kind of comfortable, your body has adjusted, but there's still that growth that is happening still within you. What then do you do there? How do you kind of find your way back to each other, and then even going to the third trimester and then beyond?
So I was listening to a conversation yesterday on Twitter Spaces. They were talking about fatherhood, and by Gaopalele Palaitsile. She was talking to dads about just the state of fatherhood, explaining how they're experiencing it, and then she spoke about how we actually equally don't know what's happening with our bodies a lot of the times. We also sometimes don't know what's happening in our parenting journeys as moms, but we reach out and we access the information, right? Dr. Google is like our bestie at times when we have no idea what's happening to our bodies. So I think it was Vusi on the show that said there's there's a lesser willingness in fathers to access the same information that we're accessing. Because I remember Googling why is this happening like this? Why am I feeling like this? What do I do if I'm doing this? And what do I do if I'm doing, like, if I'm having nausea, for example, I don't know what to do. Then Google will tell me, oh, ginger helps and this helps and that helps. So the closeness in the first trimester, and I mean, it's an emotional roller coaster more than anything else. But the closeness, I feel, comes from a place of, firstly, empathy from you, to understand and just acknowledge the fact that I'm actually going through a lot right now. So that empathy is so important, because my body is cooking up a human being, and it's reacting in ways that it wants to react. Here's the one, like, I don't have control over my own body. That's what pregnancy is, right? Another human being is having control over it. So I'm gonna be emotional. I'm going to be stressed out. I'm always going to be hungry. I'm not going to be hungry. A lot of stuff is going to happen. But if you come to me,
things that you eat.
Yes, and the strange, understand that also. So when I say I want to eat eggs with yogurt, don't say ew. Exactly. Don't make me feel bad about having cravings. I don't want it. The baby wants it. But when you come to me and say, hey, I read somewhere that ginger helps, do you want to try ginger? Oh, you know what? My husband gave me the suggestion to eat chappies, like gum, like chew gum, and it was like really helpful the first trimester. But when there's an initiative from your end as well, then it's not an isolating experience, because, like I said, it can be an isolating experience when we don't actively do it together. And on your end, you can either ask me, what do I need, if you're not sure, or you can also go to Dr. Google to ask, how can I help my wife during first trimester nausea? They have something for you. I promise you, there are thousands of resources online from fathers who can suggest to you, even mothers who have written how you can be a support to your partner during pregnancy. So a lot of the time, intimacy is not based on some physical disconnection that happens. It's actually an emotional one, because then if you're feeling emotionally distanced from each other, then intimacy becomes disrupted. So I think when we really allow ourselves to kind of experience it, on different sides, you're there thinking, I don't know what to do right now. I don't know what's happening to you right now. But you are either not taking the initiative to ask. I'm also not taking the initiative to tell you, because then I also have to take some accountability as well. To say, ish, babe, I don't know what's happening, but I'm really not feeling up to it right now. If we don't allow ourselves to really have that conversation, then the distance grows and grows and grows and grows and grows, and then we haven't been in for a long time. But I'm finding that it's not really based on anything physical. Sometimes it is physical. Sometimes my body's going through something that really doesn't allow me. Like, sometimes it is, medically inclined, and then sometimes it's not. And usually when it's not, it's because there's been so much distance within the relationship, that intimacy is at the bottom of your list, because the two of you are on separate ends of it. So take the initiative as the father to say, how can I be a support? Or just ask, how can I be a support for you right now? Then we just make sure that distance doesn't happen, because we're experiencing it so differently. We both have to be intentional about trying to do it together so that the distance doesn't grow.
Yeah. Another challenge, especially when we're talking around diet, is it's the cravings at the odd hours, like the eggs and yogurt, and sometimes the cravings are specific. I want those free range eggs from Woolies, and the yogurt
yes, very specific.
and maybe the yogurt from Checkers, the one that looks like this and that and that, and you're thinking, where am I going to find all of that? And then today it's that craving, and then I think, okay, right now that's what you like. And then fast forward to next week, I become proactive. I go buy those eggs and yogurt from the same places. And it's like, oof, what's this? It has changed. You flip the script on me, but you also, it's not by choice. It's just the cravings. And I think
but
Mm,
I'm thinking it's got nothing to do with you. So don't take it personally.
exactly.
You know? When I wake
that
up
thing.
and I don't want the Woolies eggs, then go and look at the Pick and Pay ones. What's the big deal?
It's frustrating. Because I'm thinking, okay, maybe for the last 2 occasions you've wanted that. Now I want to be proactive. I've gone out, and then now I'm bringing that, or I stock a lot of it, and then I make that for you, and then boom, nope, you no longer want this.
Why did you stock it?
I get it. I'm thinking
you wanted it. No, wait. But did you stock it because you wanted the convenience of you being able to access it quicker, or did you access it because, oh, my wife really likes this, so let me stock a lot of it?
so. Let me explain it this way. As men, what you like, I want to give you an abundance of, right? So you like that, you crave that. So, hey, I'm going to give it to you in abundance. I'm going to make sure that when the craving comes, it's there. We don't have to struggle.
Yeah.
But also, yes, for the convenience. Like, I don't have to go out in the middle of the night or in the early morning hours and go say, where can I find these things? You know, not many places have 24-hour Woolies or Checkers or Pick and Pay outlets where you can get these things. And your garages are expensive and they have limited stock. Sometimes it's not as fresh. Hey, you want to be supportive. And that's what I want to do.
It's intention versus outcome, I think, then, because then your intention is good to say, I just want to stock a lot of it so that you can just have it there. But then the outcome is also quite different, because then I'm thinking, now so I had a thing for pie. I was eating a lot of specific pie that I wanted to get at a specific place, right? And then I'd go out and buy this pie, and then cry for this pie, and then I'd get the pie. And then my husband bought me a pack of pies. But I think so his intention was probably to get all of these pies so that I can easily access them. But the outcome was, he just wanted me to have them so they didn't and mission accomplished. Like, I don't want to see a pie right now. After the box he bought, I was like, I don't want this ever again. Right? So the truth is, we can be unreasonable at times. Like, we really can be unreasonable at times, because it really is an inconvenience for you as well. I mean, this one time he came back from so imagine he's coming back from driving out, and then he parks, and I asked for ice cream, and now this guy must go back into the car and drive and go get ice cream. It's inconveniencing for you, but pregnancy is even more inconveniencing. I am not in control of my body. So if I can withstand the storm of carrying a human being, you can get out and go get ice cream. Like, I'm not asking you to sacrifice yourself. Just drive out. That's your contribution to the whole journey. We all have to contribute.
Spoken like a mommy. Spoken like a pregnant woman.
No, we must all contribute.
I think the other thing that's important as well is that the stress that also comes with the many changes that are unknown. Oh yeah, before we even get to that, I remember when my wife was pregnant, the one thing she couldn't stand is the smell. The scent of my cologne, she didn't want that. Even the roll-on itself, like she just couldn't stand it, and she couldn't hide it. And she's very expressive. So I had to actually be careful of how and when and how I do all of that. So I had to put my cologne away for the duration of that pregnancy and probably use only roll on. And the roll on, I would have to go out of the room and then put it on and then come back when I'm dressed and all is done. So
Well
that way.
done. No, well
Yay,
done.
but it wasn't easy. But also the one thing that also expecting parents need to think about is the stress, actually from both sides or to both sides. The stress that a father experiences during pregnancy can easily be passed on to the child, and the stress that mommy also experiences, that one is even directly it actually directly influences the child. And it's important to kind of deal with things almost immediately as they happen, and not necessarily wait and allow things to pile up, because that stress eventually affects your baby.
Yeah. So those, and it's so crazy because it's one of the most stressful times for a relationship. So it's so important to be conscious of stuff like that, which I think in most cases it's not the first consideration about how am I feeling contributing to what the child is feeling. But a big part of that is also really dependent on, I always go back to just the nature of the relationship between the mom and the dad. To be able to acknowledge a reality like that, to say, how do we best support each other so that we try and make this as least stressful as possible, because it won't be completely not stressful. Like now, getting pregnant in a pandemic, that's extremely stressful, and even more alienating than other times, because now I can't go to the appointment with my husband. Now there's so many restrictions in how pregnancy and childbirth is navigated, that it's inevitably a stressful time. But with that comes us as a couple, and I'm obviously talking from a standpoint of us doing this together, because some people are forced to do it separately. Some relationships don't make it after the announcement has been made. It's a hot time. It's a hot time in the kitchen, and some people can't stand the heat, and they just choose to leave. Gone. So some women have to experience it in isolation. They have to experience it in isolation. So cool. So that's very stressful on its own. So when we are fortunate to be able to do it together, then and trying to do it as consciously and intentionally as possible, then we can both not try and stress each other out. And a lot of that comes from just empathy and love. I mean, you loved your wife enough to say, "Oh, I had to struggle having to go to the other room to have to put on my roll on." I mean, it seems like such a stupid thing. Like, oh, why do I have to put my cologne away? But your empathy and your love informed you that it's something that you have to do, because it's not like she's just choosing not to like what you usually put on. She doesn't feel it right now. So empathy and love is very important.
I think when you talk about empathy and love, it talks to a concept that I was introduced to by Udedimish when he said most people become consequential parents. They get into consequential relationships. And then eventually then that spins off into something else. So you met with someone and and then it was a one night stand. It wasn't supposed to be a pregnancy, but it was a pregnancy. And you now feel a sense of responsibility to then say, Ish, let me take care of this pregnancy. And you get hooked up to the mother. And eventually you're into a relationship, and people now expect you to get married, or you feel a sense of responsibility and accountability that you get married. So it spirals down from just a consequential event that from an event that was just completely unintended, and the consequences of it just spiral out of control. Eventually you find yourself as a consequential couple. Now here you are pregnant. You can't have empathy and love towards, you can't even show it or feel it, excuse me, empathy and love towards this person. And now you find yourself having to accommodate them, accommodate their feelings, accommodate their craving. Now they're coming to you with all of these things. And when somebody you don't like constantly pesters you, you kind of get irritated and you respond unkindly. So throwing the stress back onto the baby, unaware. And perhaps then what I'm asking is, how do we exercise empathy and love, or well, at least empathy, when we found ourselves in such consequential relationships? Is it even possible to show any empathy or love towards somebody you just don't like, but who's now carrying a baby?
So I don't, and again, I'm speaking from a point of privilege because I don't know how that experience would manifest. But I wouldn't even condone a situation like that in the first place, because how counterproductive I think it will actually be. Because why are you feeling obligated to do that in the first place, right? For the sake of the child, right? Is it for the sake of the child, or is it also to show yourself as a responsible person, that's taking accountability? So the intention is very important. The reasoning behind why you are kind of allowing yourself to be with this person that you don't love, with this person that you don't know, is very important. Are you doing it because you really would love to be an active part of your child's life and make sure they grow up in a healthy and loving family? Or are you doing it because you want to be known as the guy that's taking up accountability? So the intention then is key. But secondly, the reason I wouldn't condone it, like I said, counterproductive. Because then if you're saying you're doing it for the sake of the child, but then you're responding to the mother from a place of resentment in most times, because that's what it is. You feel like you don't have to be to serve people that you don't like or people that you don't know. So when you're constantly responding from a place of resentment and unkindness, like you said, you're contributing negatively to the mother, who's then also contributing negatively to the child. So then what you intended on doing in the first place is not working, because you're actually harming the child more than you would if you just took the responsibility from far away and not kind of force this union to happen. But I think children deserve the love. So if your intention is really pure to do it for the sake of the child, then you would ask yourself, as Daddy Zibu said, to say, how does this look like for me as a man? How is me being a supportive father during this pregnancy for the sake of my child? How is that supposed to manifest right now during this pregnancy? and responding to her needs is very, very important. But then if you feel like you can't do that, then it's actually going to be a lot more detrimental than you choosing not to do it in the first place. So, like, I think on the part of the man, just a couple in essence, there has to be a lot of those conversations. We don't have the right conversations as couples. I'm finding because that's important. Like it's gonna make me feel good as the girl that we had sex and now we're pregnant. It's gonna feel good for you to say, no, I really want to do this and I really would like us to make this work. That feels nice. But are we really talking about how that's going to look like for us and for the child? Because then after the pregnancy, the child arrives, and then the child doesn't have a reference of what love and intimacy looks like because you guys aren't really getting along. You just care for me. Kids will feel that stuff, right? Kids are connected that much that they can feel when some disconnection between my parents. So now we're not being good role models about what a man and woman in a relationship should look like. And that's why I'm saying it's counterproductive, and I wouldn't encourage it at all, because the cost is actually going to be a lot more than you doing it in the first place. And I'm not even saying that in place of judgment, but there's a lot that we need to have conversations about before we commit ourselves to something like that.
Yeah, it is. And I think as well, the issue of maturity plays a big role in being mature enough to accept that there's only so much you can do. And beyond that, you can't. Because those are the things that at a later stage also cause parental alienation, which is something totally different, another beast on its own. But now, the pregnancy comes. You're there, you're together, enjoying it. Maybe also from your experience, how did you prepare yourselves for the delivery, for receiving this now baby that you kind of know the gender, and you're conceptualizing the name?
We conceptualized the name very quickly. Like after I settled into the idea, which happened very quickly after we found out we were pregnant, because a few days after we found out, we went to go do the test, the scan, and it was such a profound moment for me, because what firstly I did is I spoke to my older sister during my moments of doubt. I spoke to my older sister and I told her that, listen, I broke the news to her, and she was very chill, you know. And I'm like, no, I'm stressed out. You must stress out with me. She's like, no, man, you've got this. That set me on a different trajectory altogether, because that kind of affirmation from her, particularly as a mother herself, was very affirming to me that you can actually do this. So I decided to just bask in that completely. And then a few days after that, we went for our first scan, and I remember seeing the look on my husband's face, and he was just so mesmerized, and I think he thought that was the most beautiful thing he's ever seen. And then we just got into it. We then started getting really excited about the idea of being parents. We started thinking about names and having those conversations. So the name happened very early in our journey, because we're also very spiritual people. So we were already acknowledging the human life as a human life. The baby's already there. When we refer to the baby, we need to refer to the baby not just as a baby. We had to refer to the baby as refer to the baby as Debo, or the baby's name, and then Google helped out, Then we did the research. Then we try and be as updated as possible, because knowledge is power. Knowledge is absolute power, because we're experiencing this for the very first time, and we don't know what really needs to take place for us to navigate the journey as seamlessly as possible. So I accessed all the information that I can. I had all the apps that I can, and I chose a really good institution for me to give birth in, and then we just sign up for what do they call them? Antenatal classes, We sign up for antenatal and we get as much information as we possibly can. The beauty is the willingness from the father to do it. So we did the journey together. The breastfeeding journey, we did it together. The birthing, the birthing preparation, we also did it together. So that was pretty amazing. Plus, going to the sessions together also helped a lot. I know it's different now with COVID, but we knew what to expect. I think it's knowing what to expect when during the journey that makes it a lot more better, because then it's not such a big surprise. I mean, with our birth, we were separated when I was about to give birth. So I call him and I'm like, hey, so I think I'm in labor, and his denial set in. I don't think he was. I don't think he felt like he was mentally prepared for it. So he thought I was joking. And then I called back. I was like, hey, I'm not joking. Like, you must come pick me up. It's actually happening. But then we knew what to expect from that point going forward. We had a plan. Birthing plans are very important. I planned to kind of labor from home and then only go to the hospital when we're just about to give birth. But I also knew how that looked like. I also knew how important it is for me to be able to listen to my body. When I feel like I can't handle the contractions anymore, then that's when we get into our car and go to the hospital so that we don't get sent back and, all of that back and forth. But that happens when, we don't have adequate information. So the information accessing is so important. And when it happens from both ends, it's even more exciting. When you're also researching on your end about how to help out during labor, and relaying information that you guys got from the antenatal classes, that's even more better, because then you're traveling really the journey together, and then you don't get into the maternity ward and he's rubbing you in the wrong place and you're like, see, you should have attended the class. Don't touch me there. You must touch me here. But when we know what we need to do together, when we prepare for it together, by accessing all the information together, then it works out so well.
That is fantastic. I think the other thing that's also important is once the baby is born and learning to change the nappy. So fortunately for me, I had started with that like from way back, within the family. Whenever there was a baby, and then I would see how they would change nappies, and then I would participate. So when both my babies were born, I didn't struggle with that. And I think preparation is undervalued, but it's such an important aspect, such that now I can actually spend a day or two, or let's put it a day with a newborn baby and not struggle. Some babies, you kind of are able to decipher when they cry. They're either hungry, the nappy needs changing, or they need to sleep.
Checklist.
Right?
Checklist.
If you've gone through that checklist, but they're still crying, so it has to now do with things around comfort or discomfort. You now start thinking, okay, when last did they poop? Think of all those things, but all of that you can't know it when you've never been exposed. And one thing that probably from the dad or the male side that we need to dispel is that you are not weak, you are not whatever when you change a nappy, when you take care of a baby. Taking care of a baby and changing a nappy or bathing a baby is the most natural and okay thing to do. And it's actually the most rewarding. Like you take that newborn, you put like they fit into your hand. How difficult can that be? But you need to be careful. And just putting that little water over their heads softly and gently, making sure that it doesn't get in their eyes and all of those things. Like you get to bond with the baby. And I believe that as dads, if we can get that part right, né? that separation for the first few days will no longer be necessary. Your closing thoughts?
My closing thought is that there's a difference between presence and being active. It's something I heard again yesterday, and I think is so important. That really toxic masculinity has informed us that the pregnancy and the birth and the caretaking is our responsibility. But in essence, as women who are experiencing the pregnancy, we don't believe in that, and we don't even want it. We want you as the father to be an active part of the journey as well. So don't, because society will dictate for you whether or not you're allowed to change your child's nappy because it's not masculine, that's like a feminine thing to do. It's actually not. It's actually not just a feminine thing to do. It's actually, if you're a parent, parents change nappies, parents feed their kids, parents can go out with their kids, and you can play the same role that I play. And you can also teach your kids the same, because then if we are continuing to make parenting look like a female role, then they'll also learn the same, and then that'll continue and continue and continue. So it's so important. One of the guys yesterday said, I was so stubborn about what I wanted that I didn't allow society to tell me that I look weird because or I look weird because I'm changing a diaper. That's what I wanted. And he was so convicted in that, to say, I'm not only going to be a present father, but I'm also going to be a present, an active father. That's what dictated the nature of the relationship. And now they have an amazing relationship. And to moms as well, I think we also have to be equally supportive in the journey, because society has told men that they shouldn't bother, they shouldn't be emotionally available, but we can guide them through that. It's a new experience for them as well. They also don't know what to do. So send him to Google. I send my husband the apps that I use so that he can also use the same. And if a guy is interested, he'll take that as a hint to say, hey, just get on, and he can use the app as well and be updated about how far are we. So be as supportive as you can to them as well, because they probably don't get it, their own childhood will also dictate how they relate to the pregnancy and all of that. So that's stuff that we also have to think about as the moms, because sometimes we have to parent you guys a little bit. So we can really be an active support for you as well. Try and give you the information, to try and tell you what our needs are and how we need the support, so that we navigate the journey together. So let's just be there for each other. It's a challenge for us. Setting up to be parents is challenging for all of us. We're thinking about stuff. You guys are thinking about stuff. But let's not let our stuff isolate us during the journey. Because if we let the stuff isolate us during the journey of the pregnancy itself, of being mom and dad, if we allow ourselves to be separated during that journey, then even after the baby's here, it's going to be so difficult for us to get on the same page about what it is that we want for our children, because the distance is so strong. You're over there and I'm over there. But if we do it together and be supportive and empathetic and loving towards one another, then it's a little less complex than it can if we're not talking and being empathetic and loving.
Fantastic. So everyone, both moms and dads, wherever you've tuned in, thank you for tuning in. It's been a great morning with you, Mommy. Looking forward to next week, where we do this again some more.
Yeah. So next week we're talking about after the birth, the first few days of a child's life, right?
Yes.
This is going to be a wonderful one. So please tune in next week, same time, 9 a.m. on Dads in the Picture, Facebook, YouTube, and Black Mom Chronicles, Facebook, YouTube. We'll see you guys soon.
Bye-bye.
Cool. Enjoy it. Bye.